Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Ashmi Das Gupta and you are watching Soft Cover, the Print's platform for the launch of select non-fiction books. The book that we are releasing today is called The Ordinary Life, Portrait of an Indian Generation. It's a heartwarming and inspirational story about the life and times of Uday Singh Lavasa, or Bauji as he was fondly called by his children. The book has been authored by his son Ashok Lavasa, former Election Commissioner of India. Mr. Lavasa has held many important positions in his nearly 4-decade-long bureaucratic career, including Union Finance Secretary. He is currently the Vice President of Asian Development Bank. Welcome to The Print, sir, and many congratulations on your second book. Yes, let me tell our viewers and readers that this is not Mr. Lavasa's debut book. In 2006, Mr. Lavasa wrote his first book, An Uncivil Servant, the success story of a bureaucrat turned businessman, Ravi Mohan Sethi. Before we go further, I would like to show the book, An Ordinary Life. So the book is published by HarperCollins India. Thank you, Mr. Lavasa, for joining us. And thank you for writing this heartwarming story of your father, an ordinary man, as you have described him. The book, as it is very personal at many levels, also has many lessons for the younger generation of today, especially on how it is possible to live a principled and honest life on your own terms. I'm sure our viewers, readers will order and read the book. Thank you once again, sir, for joining us. Now, without wasting any more time, let us hear the story of Bauji from his son. So, sir, the first question I wanted to ask you is, how will you describe Bauji, your father, and why you think the book is not as much a story of an individual as it is about a way of life, and how is it relevant even today?
Thank you, first of all, Moshmi, for having me over, and thank you for unveiling the book for the readers. And I must begin by complimenting the Print for setting new way of communication and new standards in journalism. But coming to the book, I think, as you rightly said, this book is not about one individual. It is not about my father alone. It is generally about the times that he lived in. And how I came to write this book, I think primarily there were 2 or 3 reasons. One is that he left a diary which came in very handy to me. It described in a lot of detail his life and his times, more particularly. So it gave us a peep into some of the details of his life that we were not aware of. But more importantly, it revealed many facets of the society and the life that he led during those times, pre-independence and post-independence. Secondly, during the pandemic, when life almost came to a standstill and people were wondering, what has the world come to? And people suddenly started becoming fond of nature and environment and seeing the birds and wondering whether materialism had reached its peak and what kind of existence have human beings created for themselves. So I thought that, is it possible that the past can open a window to the future? And thirdly, I thought that I also got time to read many biographies at that time, including that of Mahatma Gandhi and B.R. Ambedkar and others. And I began to wonder that what is greatness? Is it only that people who become famous, people who are recognized the world over, are they great people? Or it is also possible to find greatness in ordinary people who do great deeds and who leave a lot of lasting lessons for society and for the people they come in contact with. So I think that is the reason why I thought that it was good to write about an ordinary life with so many lessons in it.
Bauji, your father, while living a simple yet principled life, ensured that all his children are well provided for, be it in terms of good education, be it standing on their own feet. So how easy or difficult do you think would it be for Bauji to live the way he lived in today's day and age?
I think the fact that he lived life on his terms, I'm sure was not peculiar to him, because there were many people like him. And you talk to any family, you talk to people, they will tell you of individuals in their households, in their extended families, who are sometimes beacons of hope and beacons of conviction. So he was one such individual. And the fact that he came from a fairly good background, but he ran into a lot of difficulties in his life, which is all described in the book. I think post-independence, there was an era where industrialization was taking place, and people by and large thought that education was a means of earning a decent livelihood, and it could get you a passport to the future. It could lead you to make some progress in life. And therefore, I think they placed a lot of store on education, which is what he did, not only for himself, but also for us, the way he educated us. And I think this quest for giving good education for progress in life is still on. So you find that even today, there are families who, and why some families, everybody wants their children to be well educated. The only thing I would say is that that was a time when education meant much more than acquiring degrees. So as I heard often him say that it is achhi shiksha, achhi talim, achhe sanskar. And I think the objective was and is still to make responsible citizens and good human beings. So this is what I bring out in the book, also by giving many instances of the school that I went to.
Yeah, and it's also a reflection of, he was far ahead of his times in many ways, where he placed and the importance on education as a tool for empowering himself as well as his family, as well as his children. There are also instances in a father's life, sir, where the stand that he took, appeared to be very rigid. Like the time when, he went to the railway station in Faridabad, when his eldest son and his daughter were returning from Gujarat, and they were carrying extra luggage, and the ticket checker asked for some bakshi so that he could allow that extra luggage, and he refused to give them, saying that he's willing to give penalty for the extra luggage, but he won't pay bribe. And in the end, what happened was that, instead of giving 1 rupee as bribe, he ended up paying 58 rupees as penalty. So, were there times in your family when you or your siblings felt that it would have been better if maybe he was a bit more flexible? Because the harsh stand that he took at times did lead to hardship for the family.
Well, I think there could be moments at that point in time when you had to see him taking a rigid stand that you might have felt that, he could be more flexible. But I think in the long run, we all felt that what he was doing was based on his convictions. What he was doing was following the right path. And I can tell you, Maushami, that, for example, the school that I went to, one of the things for which we were given the severest punishment was if we took a shortcut. So if there is a road or a route going to the classroom, and if anybody was found taking a shortcut, then he would be really given a severe punishment. So I think that was a generation which believed that, you have to lead life based on certain values, certain principles, and there is no reason to compromise. And the other thing I feel is that Post independence, when the industries were coming up in India and we were entering a phase of manufacturing. So I think that was the time when engineers and supervisors, there was a lot of emphasis on following the process. Because if you fail to follow the right process, if you compromise on the process, then the quality of the product could be also compromised. So I think this uh, obsession, if it were, on following the right path, that was more important. You had to adopt right means to achieve the end. The end was not important, it was important, but the means were equally important. And I think we always felt inspired by the way he led by example.
Uh, Very rarely, sir, I have to admit that we come across biographies which are so frank and objective, despite being personal. In fact, in your book, you have mentioned that it is very difficult to be critical of your parents when you are narrating their story. So, was it difficult for you to write about your father's life with such honesty, bringing out all aspects of his personality, including his flaws?
I think you cannot do justice to writing if you're not sufficiently objective in approaching the subject that you do. And at the same time, ironical as it might sound, there is a principle of negative capability in literature, that the writer must have the capability of feeling what his characters feel. So I think it's a slightly complex process where you have to be objective and yet get into the skin of the character at the same time. So I don't think that I have been sentimental. I didn't want to be sentimental about the person that I was writing. And as I said, that I was able to be a little distant from his personality or his feelings, because I felt that he was representing a generation. And I was actually writing about a generation, not about an individual. But there could be some element of subjectivity. But I have tried to write sensitively, not sentimentally.
Yeah, and it comes across pretty well in the book, sir, I have to admit. Sir, how have you emulated your father's teachings in your career as a civil servant? Can you give us some instances where you try to, look back on his life and emulate some lessons from his life?
Well, I think it's not possible for me to cite one particular instance, because ultimately what you do and what you decide to do, the action, they are all a reflection of the sum total of your personality. And what has influenced you in life, it is difficult to isolate one person or one instance. But at the same time, I think when you observe people live the way they do, and you find that here is a life of conviction, then you do feel that it leaves an impression on you. So I think the biggest lesson that I learned from the way he led life was that he was not out to ruffle feathers. He was not out to pick up fights. But at the same time, he was not out to make compromises easily. So what I think I learned from him was that it is possible for you to get along with people. It is possible for you to do things the way you want. And there has to be a certain way of doing it. But I remember for many years, I used to keep a quotation, I don't know who it was, who said that peace if possible, but truth at all costs. And I think the one other thing that it comes across, not only from his life, but from several others, is that ultimately, I think honesty is a good policy. And when you say policy, it is not that you are just acting on instinct or you are acting out of some impulses. A policy is something which you decide is on balance after having considered all alternatives. It is something which will stand you in good stead in the long run. So I think I have great faith in this dictum. The only thing is that you need people who support you, and you need to be very clear that it may not always get appreciated.
Right, sir. So in hindsight, what would you call the most challenging period of your career? And during those challenging period, did you ever reflect on how, if your father had been there in that place, how would he have tackled the situation?
I think like all civil servants, there have been numerous challenges in my career. But as I said, that I have always believed that if you're working for a good cause, if you're working with the right intent, then it is possible, by and large, to persuade people to agree to do the right thing. And how my father would have reacted, it's difficult to imagine, because I think he was a very uncomplicated person. And he never had any dilemmas in life. He knew that this is the right thing to do, and he would go ahead and do it, no matter what the consequences were. So in a sense, I don't think that there were too many dilemmas in his life. But one thing which I recall now as a very young officer, when I had joined and I landed myself in a very messy situation, and I was getting the rough end of the stick from the government at the time. One of the very senior officers in the state told me that, the problem with you guys is that you don't know what is tactical retreat. And I remember having told him, because he reminded me 20 years later that this is what he had told me. And I told him, sir, that at this early stage in life, if I start tactical retreat, one day I'll forget the difference between a retreat and a defeat. So I'm quite okay not to make a tactical retreat, and I am willing to bear whatever the consequence of my decision is.
Okay. So your father's father not only influenced the life of his children, but his life's lessons have also rubbed on to the next generation. Also, like the one instance where you mentioned in the book, where your son Avi took a prize catch in a cricket match, but told the umpire that he was in the wrong as his back had touched the rope. So, as a father, what are your thoughts on this?
First of all, it was his decision. So it was not my decision. I had never told him that this is the way you have to do things. Just as our parents never asked us to distinguish what is right and what is wrong, you have to figure out what you're comfortable with. The important thing is that as parents or as experienced people, do you support them going through the consequences? And again, in this instance, it was not that he was applauded. In fact, he was criticized by his team. And as a young man, he was going through this dilemma whether he had done the right thing. And I told him that I think you've done the right thing, because today you may be feeling bad, but eventually, if you had not disclosed the right thing honestly to the umpire, forever this would have weighed heavily on your conscience. So you have to figure out, and I think you figured out the right thing. The other thing, Maushami, that I feel is that, very many years ago, when we were getting our children admitted in a school, we went to a school, and the principal there, he said one thing which was very telling, and I'm talking of 1998 or 97, or even earlier, sorry, I'm talking of 1989. And the principal said that in my school, I teach children how to face failure. I don't teach them how to face success. And I was quite puzzled by what he said. And he told me that there was a boy in his school who used to play very good tennis. He lost, he didn't get a certificate, and he wanted the principal to give him a certificate. So he said that, why do you want a certificate? We don't give certificates to losers. So he said that, no, my parents will not even believe that I participated because I have lost. So he said that, look, it's not important to win all the time. And it is how the character of a person is determined by his struggle, not his success. So you have to cope with your circumstances. And I think that is the kind of education. I recall another instance I mentioned in the book, is about another friend of mine. When he was admitted in the school in 1966, and the father had to write in the admission form what he wanted his son to become. And what he wrote was that I want my son to become a worthy man. So he
Yeah.
didn't want his son to become a doctor or a lawyer or a civil servant, but he just said, so I think there was a time when people lived by different values. And I dare say that even today, there are people who have the same values. They may not come in the limelight, but I'm sure there are plenty of such people in our society.
Yeah. So your father also wanted you to be a collector from the time you were in school. In fact, he has made, I mean, you mentioned that in the book, and one of your teachers in the Belgaum military school had also written a letter to your father where he said that, he dreamed that you would become a collector. But coming back to your father, what role did your father play in your decision to become a civil servant? And what kind of relationship did you have with your father?
First of all, I must correct you that he didn't write that he wanted me to become a collector. He wrote, which I discovered as late as 2018 when I went to the school. And when I saw my admission form, what he had written was that the boy wants to become a collector. So I don't know where he got this feeling. I don't remember why I gave him this impression. Maybe because I mentioned in the book one of the incidents that might have persuaded me. But I do know that I opted for humanities instead of science. And that was already a time that classification of students had started based on their abilities, and all the good ones used to do science and all the
bad ones the humanities. Yeah. I remember it used to happen in our school too. Where I think students who studied humanities were not considered that bright or intelligent.
So, but I think the biggest support that I got from him was that he wrote a letter to the principal that please allow the child to take a decision for himself. And that is what clinched it in my favor. Otherwise, the principal was very adamant that I should be doing science. So I think that was his contribution in making me study humanities. But he didn't push me to be in the civil services. I do remember that he said that, why don't you just show whether you can qualify the exams or not? So maybe that thing persuaded
you took it as a challenge.
Well, not as a challenge, but there were other factors which I describe in the book, why I appeared for the civil services. But as far as his contribution is concerned, that was what he, and I think, again, going back to my times in college, there were a number of us, many students who would appear for civil services because they wanted to, work for public service. And they were influenced a lot by the preceding generation and the value that they gave to public service. So, and also because there were not too many choices at that time.
Another remarkable characteristic of a father was his ability to, let his children take their own decision. And back then, I mean, there are several instances in the book. One instance where your elder sister was sent to Vanaspali Vidyapeeth in Rajasthan, and the school warden did not allow her to read the letters because the letter was sent by a neighbor's son. And he sent the letters were sent back to your father, and your father said that please allow my daughter the liberty to read the letters that are written to her. So that's a very remarkable feature and very progressive also. I mean, considering the fact that it was back then when, in many other families, it would have been looked down upon. So how will you compare yourself, sir, to Bauji, your father? Are you more lenient, more accommodative, and more open to, displaying your affections towards your children?
Well, I think there is no comparison, and the world has changed. I think instead of teaching children, there are many things that we have to learn from the children. But one thing which I can say quite honestly is that the hallmark of his upbringing was that he allowed us to take our own decisions. I gave you the example of the choice of studies. And pretty much we also feel that the children should have the freedom to take their own decisions. And I think parents need to provide assistance and support where the children seek their help. Otherwise, I think the responsibility of the parents is to provide support to the children in whatever they are doing, and even to tell them about their views of what they think is right or wrong. But eventually, I think it's their life. So just to give you an example, there are many children now who keep changing their academic paths. I mean, they do botany, then they do mass communication, or there are, like our daughter, she did economics honors, and then she did sports administration, and eventually she landed in the civil services. Our son was a professional cricket player, and then after he gave up his game and then went on to do MBA. So I think there are a lot of choices, and I think their personalities will flourish if they're allowed to make their own choices.
So one important factor that helped, and this is a question I should have asked you earlier, one important factor that helped your father live the life he lived, the principal life, was the fact that your mother solidly stood behind him always, even if she suffered in the initial years of her marriage. So how much influence did she have in your and your siblings' life?
I think I have dedicated this book to my mother. And what I have said in the dedication is that she was the gentle wind to Amma, who has been the gentle wind in our sails. I have a feeling that women in Indian society continue to play a very strong, very significant role. And not only women of that generation, I think even women today, they often play the role of an anchor. An anchor is not seen, the ship is seen, but the anchor is unseen. But the anchor provides a lot of stability to the family. And that is the kind of role which my mother played. Again, I think she was not unique in that sense. There are many like her. One instance which I have mentioned in the book is that even in that time, in 1958, she had the freedom and independence of thought to take decision on undergoing tubectomy. It was she who told the doctor that I want to undergo tubectomy. And then the doctor filled the form and requested my father to sign it. So I think she was very independent-minded. She very progressive and very accommodating. And she provided the kind of support which any person who would be as headstrong and principled as my father was, he would not succeed if that kind of support was not provided. In fact, I also mentioned that just before my father passed away, he had verbally expressed a desire to donate his eyes. And when my sister came back from the hospital and told my mother that Bauji has passed away, she immediately said that please go back and get the formalities completed to donate his eyes, because this is what he wanted. So I think she played a very fulfilling role in his life.
Any plans, sir, to write a book on your life as a bureaucrat, considering you occupied many hot seats in the government? And also, like, what would be your reaction if one of your children were to tell you that, they want to write about your life? I mean, would you be as open and forthcoming as your father when the story of your life is written?
It would depend on if somebody finds what I have done or what I have achieved or what I have not achieved interesting enough that it could be a subject worth writing about. So it depends a lot on that. And there is a certain objectivity, as I said, that you require for writing. So it's better that others find your life interesting rather than your tom-tomming that your life has been very interesting and exciting.
But what would be your reaction if one of your children were to tell you that they want to write a book on you?
They're most welcome to experiment.
So we can expect a book on the life and times of Mr. Ashok Lavasa.
No, that you have to ask the potential author, not me.
On that note, sir, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. And once again, many, many congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Maushmi, for having me over. And let me just say that this book is not about an individual. It just as Oliver Twist is not about one child. It's about the life and times during that era. It is about upbringing. It is about the quality of education. And it is also about how you can lead a life without making easy compromises. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.